morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. Good to have you all here. We've been here several times, and Jonathan's preached and taught here a few times. We really appreciate all the hospitality and the friendliness that you guys have here. I'm really nervous. I'm not usually this nervous, but I'm really nervous because most of the people out here I know or know me. Usually when I speak, I speak to people who don't know me, and it's great. I could just say whatever I want and then leave. But unfortunately, I'm going to see you guys. I mean, fortunately, I guess I'm going to see you guys again. So I'm a little afraid of what's going to come out of here. So, all right. Thanks, Maria, for inviting me. Hopefully this goes well, and if not, Maria's well. No, I'm just kidding. All right. She asked me to speak on serving God in the winter of our lives. Great topic, and it's a very important topic to discuss, I think. And if I've taken it correctly, it means, the winter of our lives, so like the end part of our lives, which is great. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm there yet. At least I hope not. So hopefully I have some beneficial things to say, despite the fact that I'm not sure, I'm not really there yet. So I have two lessons today. The first part is about seasonal temptations. It's going to be a little bit more heavy, maybe a little bit more not happy and positive, but I feel like it's necessary. So just keep that in mind if we get to the end of the message, this first message, and you think, wow, she's really terrible. Hopefully there's more things coming, more better things coming in the second session. That should be a little bit more positive. All right, so we're going to talk about seasonal temptations. All right, let's talk about the seasons. We have spring, summer, autumn, winter. Spring I think of more as, young kid up to college age. Learning everything, being influenced by everyone. There's lots of storms and drama and emotions and things like that. Summer I think of more as like a young mom or raising kids, really busy, being really busy all the time. Autumn is kind of the empty nesters, maybe getting close to being retired, maybe working hard after your kids move out of the house. And then winter, of course, retired, living on your own, being, enjoying the end of your life, I guess I could say. Throughout these seasons, we all have them. Have your temptations changed during all of your seasons? Maybe when you are in the spring of your life, you struggle with obeying your parents. Or maybe you struggle with your tongue, or not thinking before you speak. And then you move on to being a mom and having lots of kids and being so busy and maybe forgetting to put God first in your family. Throughout these things, our temptations change. Hopefully you've conquered some sins over your lifetime. Hopefully you've mastered some things. But that doesn't mean that Satan is done tempting you in the end of your life. He will find other ways, things that we aren't expecting. And as life situations change, so do our temptations and our ways of service. So I looked up some articles on common temptations of seniors, those in the winter of our lives. There is actually research on these things. So there were some common temptations or common struggles that women in the winter of their lives face. So I read a few different articles and a few studies about the topic, and I noticed some similarities. So we're going to discuss some of those. But please note that while this may be common, there are 5 things. While these 5 temptations may be common among women who are of a certain age, that doesn't mean that we who are not in that age are, are things we don't struggle with, are not temptations for us. These could be temptations for any age, just because they may be more common in one age or another. That doesn't exempt us from being tempted by them. Also, hopefully, even if you're not in this season of your life, you might be someday. You hopefully will be someday. So consider this your preparedness. You're maybe warning ahead of time that the devil may try to tempt you with these things as your life goes on. So let's look at 5 common temptations of the winter season of our lives. Number 1 is idleness or laziness. All right, first we're going to turn to 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 6 through 13. And I will be reading most of the scriptures today, so I don't want to put any of you guys on the spot. All right, 2 Thessalonians 3, 6 through 13. Now we command you, brothers, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you keep away from any brother who is walking in idleness and not in accord with the tradition that you received from us. For yourselves know how you ought to imitate us, because we were not idle when we were there with you, nor did we eat anyone's bread without paying for it. But with toil and labor we worked night and day, that we might not be a burden to any of you. It was not because we do not have that right, but to give you in ourselves an example to imitate. For even when we were with you, we would give you this command: if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. For we hear that some among you walk in idleness, not busy at work, but busybodies. Now such persons we command and encourage in the Lord Jesus Christ to do their work quietly and to earn their own living. As for you, brothers, do not grow weary in doing good. So this goes along again with Galatians 6:9. Do not grow weary in doing good. Keep in mind that idleness, laziness is a common temptation. And I get it, man. I'm already tired, and I am just 34. I'm so tired. It may have something to do with the fact that I have a toddler, but I'm real tired. So I understand, I hear that the older I get, the more tired I'm going to get. So that's not looking good for me. But just because I'm tired, just because I'm really worn out, that doesn't mean that my work is done yet. You never stop being a Christian. You never stop serving God. There's not an end to it until death. So, of course, these things change over the years. You may have some more physical ailments. You may have some more struggles in how to serve and how to work for the church. But it doesn't change the fact that you are supposed to be working. It just changes the way you may work. It's not an excuse for giving up. Satan never stops tempting us, so we cannot give up fighting him. Just because we're tired, just because we are exhausted, because we've done the same thing for so many years in our lives, because we have so many people asking things of us, it doesn't mean that we just give up. We don't just punch a time card for church, for worship, and make sure that we come and just punch our card. We have to be actively working. And Satan will realize when you stop working, when you're not paying attention, and he will tempt you when you do that. So that's our first temptation, idleness and laziness. Next is bitterness. Ephesians 4:31 and 32. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you. So what is bitterness? I looked up the Greek word for bitterness in this passage, and it's the word pikira. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. I don't speak Greek. So pikira. I thought that maybe bitterness today is someone who is very unpleasant. They have a sour taste in their mouth. They're not kind. You don't really want to be around them. They're not very fun to be around. But I realized when looking up the definition from the original Greek that it was a lot more extreme than I thought. Thayer's lexicon says it's for bitter gall, extreme wickedness, a bitter root, and so producing a bitter fruit, metaphoric bitterness, bitter hatred. That's a lot harsher than I would assume that someone being bitter is. Extreme wickedness, hatred, bitter hatred. And next, Strong's Greek dictionary said acridity, especially of poison, literally or figuratively. So when I think of these definitions in this context, I think of someone who always hates something or someone. Someone who, they're never happy. They don't approve of any decision that anyone in the church makes, any of the leaderships, any of the people in the church at all. They always look very unpleasant. They always complain about something. They seek to bring down others and to get others on their team to bring others down. Perhaps they are maybe producing more bitter fruit. Acridity is a harsh, unpleasant taste. Something very harsh. So someone who is very harsh and unkind. And you talk to these people and you feel like when you leave, you feel harsh and unkind as well. You just don't feel very good about yourself. So today, we don't typically categorize these as being a bitter person. We take bitter a little bit more lightly, I think. But it's important to know that these people are still there. We shouldn't take the sin of bitterness lightly. While I somewhat understand where this may come from, especially if you are in the winter of your life, if you're constantly in a lot of pain, if you've lost some loved ones, if you don't have a lot of money or time or things to give, I could understand being bitter about that. But just remember, bitterness is no excuse to act that way. We have a prize waiting for us at the end of our lives. Hopefully, we'll get to go to heaven, and that is always something to look forward to. So even though the world may be bitter, even though your situation may be bitter, you have something to look forward to make you not bitter. So work on looking forward to the sweet reward that will be heaven instead of the bitter, sinful world that we live in. All right, our next temptation is unrighteous judgment. Okay, so this is a lot of stuff. I have a lot of full slide. I don't have time to read everything on it, I don't think, but it's pretty heavy stuff. All right, so we know that in the Bible, there's a lot of discussion, especially in the New Testament, about judging. And there's a difference between righteous judgment and unrighteous judgment. There's also, I feel like this gets intertwined and confused a lot with criticism. So we're going to talk about criticism next. So now we're just going to piece apart what is judgment, unrighteous judgment, and righteous judgment. Okay. Righteous judgment is using the Bible as a standard for Christians. We see this, I'm not going to read the whole passage, but in John 7:17 through 24, verse 24 says, "Do not judge by appearances, but judge with the right judgment." We must be right ourselves before judging others. So let's look at Matthew 7, verse 1. "Judge not, that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." So we need to look introspective at ourselves before we judge others. Look at yourself to make sure you are doing good, that you have a right to say these things, that you are blameless and pure in your judgments. And then the other thing for righteous judgment is to handle issues and judgments within the church. So in Matthew 18, verse 15, it says, "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother." So while this verse doesn't say anything specifically about judgment, we have to judge if someone sins against us. We have to judge if it's a sin, or if it's a criticism, if it's just something we don't like about somebody, or something that we assume. Maybe you assume that someone was mean to you. That's not necessarily a sin, and if you're assuming it, you don't know if that was their intent or not. So that's not judging someone, that is more of critiquing or criticizing. So make sure that the issues and the judgments that you have with someone are, again, righteous, and that you handle them yourself. Don't go off and tell others about it, or complain, maybe to the deacon or an elder or something about it. Go to that person first and talk to them about it. If he listens to you, and again, this is if he sins against you, so not if you just have a complaint about them. If they sin against you, you go and tell him his fault. Hopefully kindly and understandingly. And keep it between yourselves, not between others. And then if he listens to you, you have gained a brother. This passage goes on to say, what if he doesn't listen to you, involving the elders of the church and things like that, or bringing 2 or 3 with you that you trust. But we want to remember that that is the after if they don't listen to you. It should be between the 2 of you first. All right, so righteous judgment, to review, using the Bible as a standard, we must be right ourselves before judging others, and handle issues and judgments within the church, not involving a lot of other people, but between you and the person that you have an issue with. All right, now unrighteous judgment is defined in a few ways. First, uses opinions and assumptions as a standard instead of the Bible. Again, this is kind of what I call criticism, so we'll talk about that in a minute. And then judging non-Christians with Christian standards. You know, often I see a lot of Christians looking at non-Christians and saying, can you believe what she is wearing? I can't believe she said that word. You know, things like that. And while yes, you know, maybe they are wearing immodest things, maybe they're using foul language, we have to remember that they are not Christians. They are not children of God. Most of the time, these people don't know that the Bible says that these things. So in 1 Corinthians 5, verse 12, First Corinthians 5 and verse 12. For what have I to do with judging outsiders? Is it not those inside the church whom you are to judge? God judges those outside. So we're not to judge those outside of the church by the standard of the church. Remember that when we're talking about non-Christians and talking to non-Christians, they're not held to the same standards that we are. They are lost. They don't know the Bible. So we're trying to bring them to the church. We're trying to bring them to Christ. And we can't do that if we harshly judge them. If you meet someone on the street and you think that they're dressed immodestly, it wouldn't open their mind or open their eyes to Christ if we harshly judge them and say, I can't believe what you're wearing. We can't bring you to church in that, you know? That's not a way to bring someone to the Bible. So learn to build a relationship with them and not hold them to our own standards. Love them. Show them the truth in love. We want to save them and not judge them against our own precepts. So, if you feel the need to judge someone, or you feel like you're in the right place that this needs to happen, think about, is it a biblical matter? Is it an actual sin, or is it just a complaint? Is this person a Christian, or are they a non-Christian? Should you be judging them against the Bible, or not? And how should I righteously handle this? Should I talk to them myself? Should I bring this up together? Or should I, bring other people? How should I handle this righteously? All right, does that make sense? Okay. All right, next is criticism. The definition of criticism, it's distinct from judgment. Criticism is a perceived fault or a mistake. Something based on perceived faults or mistakes, a harsh opinion or critique of one's actions. At least I don't really think of this as a sin, but I feel like it's something maybe going under the radar in the church that's really harming the church and bringing a lot of division. Maybe you think that someone is not doing a very good job at something. This person is not good at leading singing, and yet they keep putting this guy up there, Maybe this person is not great with children, but they agreed to teach a Bible class, so they're not doing a great job, but at least they're trying, I guess. Maybe someone prepared communion in the way that you don't like. It's not a sinful matter. It's just something that you don't like. I feel like as we get older, and especially I've seen in myself as I get older and see more things, I realize what I like and what I prefer and what I don't like. But we have to remember sometimes that just because we prefer it some way doesn't mean that's the way it needs to be. So when we criticize people, do we have an attitude of wanting to help them or wanting to help them improve, or do we just want to say that we could do a better job? We may think of some constructive criticism to give, but do we present it in a helpful way? So Proverbs 15, verse 1. Proverbs 15, verse 1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." So if we have something constructive to say, do we present it in a soft manner so that we are heard, or do we present it in a harsh manner because we think that our ideas are the best? In Ephesians 4:15, it says, "Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ, for whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love." This passage is discussing the body. And I feel like criticism can get in between the body and hurt us, bring us apart. I think it's great that it says, held together by every joint with which it is equipped. You know, I imagine in my mind that criticism gets in between the joints and brings all of the members apart. So we want to speak the truth in love, emphasis being on speak the truth, not our opinions, in love, and speak kindly so that we can build up the church and not tear it down. So back to the concept of constructive criticism. I put criticism in air quotes because I feel like if it's constructive, if it's helpful, it's not really criticism. It's more of a critique or a teaching moment or a helpful moment. If we can't grow and improve if we don't know what to improve on. So maybe critiquing, helping, encouraging someone is important, especially for the older women who've been in the church for a while, have learned a lot of things. You guys have a lot of knowledge to share. It's very important. And like in our verse in Titus, it says that older women are to teach the younger women. It's very important. But we want to do it productively and kindly instead of criticizing negatively. There's a way to do it productively. There's a way to advise others and help them without being critical of the work that they are doing. So before you feel the need to critique or give advice, consider these things. Think before you speak. Is it true? Is it true, or do you just prefer it to be done a better way? Is it helpful? Is this going to help them, or are you just telling them what you don't like about it? Is it important? Is this an important skill? Is it that important how we arrange the communion cups in the tray? It's not that important, you know? Is it necessary? Is this something that is soul-saving? Is it something that is life-saving? You know, is it something that we need to learn or need to know? And is it kind? Are you saying it in a way that conveys that you care about their soul, that you want them to learn, you want them to grow? Or is it unkind? And then let's talk about when we're on the accepting end of criticism. It's happened probably to all of us. We've all gotten some criticism that we didn't appreciate, we didn't accept, we didn't enjoy. And especially, again, I feel like the older I get, the less open I am to criticism or critique. So when we're on the receiving end of criticism, think objectively. Objectively is taking the emotion and the feelings out of it. So think, is there truth in the criticism? Even if it's just a tiny little grain of sand. Even if someone says, I don't really like the way that you're teaching Bible class. I feel like you could be more in control of your class. There's probably a little bit of truth in that, right? You could probably have a little bit better control. Even though the way that it said was not very kindly. So think about it objectively. Is there room for me to grow? Am I doing the right thing? Are my intentions pure? Am I trying to teach Bible class? Am I trying to do a good job? Could I improve? And can this person help me? Could I utilize their skills and their wisdom and everything that they've learned? And if not, who can help me improve? So the biggest thing here is to not take it personally. We all know that we all have improvements to make. We all have sins. We all have shortcomings. We all have temptations and things that we could improve on in our lives. So think about it that way. If someone is criticizing us, critiquing us, offering to give us advice, how do we take it kindly? How do we turn this into making ourselves better in serving the church? All right, our last temptation, and I'm running early, lucky for you guys, is gossiping. Ugh. Nobody likes to talk about this, right? But here we are. So gossiping is a common temptation among older women in the church. A good definition would be casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true. Now we all know that gossip is wrong, right? We all know that pulling someone aside and saying, "You'll never guess what I heard about this person," I mean, it's just the craziest thing. But sometimes, we know this is true, so sometimes do we spin it? Do we find other ways around maybe not really gossiping, but, I have a prayer request about my friend. She's really struggling at this time. If you see her around, maybe she's not with her husband. She could really use some prayers. We may not call that gossip, but is it? Or is it enticing someone? Putting in someone's head, she's having trouble with me. So even though it may not be, at least in our thoughts, we may think, I'm not gossiping, I'm just giving a prayer request. Is it really important to tell everyone these things? Is it really important to add, if you don't see her around with her husband, or things like that? Or should we just, with pure intention, say, I feel like this person probably needs prayers? So we know that a gossip can and does hurt someone very deeply. In Proverbs 16, verse 28, a dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisperer separates close friends. So most of the verses I'm reading are from the English Standard Version. I use a different version, and I use the New Century Version, which is kind of obscure, but I promise it's good. My version says, a useless person causes trouble, and a gossip ruins friendships. So even though we act like we may be doing something for the greater good, giving someone a heads up that someone's having a hard time. Maybe, we should encourage this person. God knows our intentions. He knows what's in our heart. And he knows if we really want to pray and encourage this person, or if we really just want to spread around that little morsel of truth that we think we have. All right, let's look at Romans 1:28. All right, Romans 1, verse 28 through 32. And since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. This is a pretty harsh passage, isn't it? We have things in there like murderers, haters of God, faithless, heartless, inventors of evil, and gossips. It's harsh, isn't it? We don't think of gossip as something where we deserve to die for spreading gossip. But it says here, these people who are evil, these people who do all of these evil, terrible, horrible things, They're gossips. And that's one of their characterizations. That's one of their characteristics. Though they know they are wrong, they that do these things deserve to die. They still do them, and they give approval to others. We don't think of these things, murders, evil people, wickedness, those people deserve to die, right? People who murder others, the death penalty, yeah, you murder 5 people, you murder 1 person, you deserve to die. But gossipers? I don't know. If we gossip, do we deserve to die? I mean, it is a sin, right? And then, of course, God knows the intention behind your words. Even if you say, I don't have a problem with gossip. I keep secrets, I pray for others and whatever. God knows your intent, and he knows that when you come up to someone and say, hey, I've got a prayer request for this person. They're struggling really hard. He knows, is your intent to really pray for this person and to help them? Or is your intent to spread your knowledge of what you think they've done? All right. Whew, that was heavy, wasn't it? All right. Heaven is called a place of rest because we're supposed to be tired when we get there. Look out for these temptations in any season you're in. Always be on guard, stand firm, be courageous. Never let your guard down. Like we said before, Satan is waiting for us to be weak. He's waiting for a weakness to come in and tempt us with these things. We don't have time to rest on earth. Satan never gives us a break. We don't have time to just, I'll just sit here for 5 minutes and give in to the temptation to gossip. I'll pray for forgiveness later. It's going to work out. I'll just be done. But we don't have time for that. That's what heaven is for. Heaven is for resting. If we get to heaven, hopefully we get to heaven. When we get to heaven, we can rest. And for eternity, we won't have any of these temptations, these struggles, and these issues anymore. All right, I'm going to read from Hebrews 4. Hebrews chapter 4. I'm going to read verses 1 and 2 and 8 through 13. Therefore, while the promise of entering his rest still stands, let us fear, lest any of you should seem to have failed to reach it. For good news came to us just as to them, but the message they heard did not benefit them because they were not united by faith with those who listened. For if Joshua had given them rest, God would not have spoken of another day later on. So then there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For whoever has entered God's rest has also rested from his works as God did from his. Let us therefore strive to enter that rest, so that no one may fall by the same sort of disobedience. For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of the soul and the spirit, of the joints and the marrow, and discerning the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And no creature is hidden from his sight, but all are exposed to the eyes of him who must give an account. So again, it says here, God knows our intent. He knows our thoughts. He knows what we're thinking and what we're saying. We can't rest. We can't give up. Even controlling our thoughts. We can't just let our thoughts wander and think about, what if we tell all these things about someone? What if we're bitter about people in the church? What if I don't like the way that someone does something? He knows that we're thinking it in our minds, even though we may not be expressing it outward. Heaven, again, is called a place of rest because we're supposed to be tired when we get there. We're supposed to be exhausted. Like I said, the older I get, the more tired I get, but I can't give up. I know that as the years go on, I'm just going to get more tired and more tired and more tired, but I can't give in to that. Just because my temptations change, my ways to serve God changes, I can't give up fighting. You're never done being a Christian. You can work in a job your whole life and retire, but you cannot work to be a Christian and retire at the end of your life. You can't add up service over the years and then say, I've done enough to get me through the rest of my life. Our salvation is not decided. Even in the last days of our lives, it could change. It's not fixed. Keep that in mind when facing the temptations in whatever season you're in. You're never done being a Christian.